Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I got to watch yet another full Indiana football game.
Oh,
I am living my absolute best life. I suspect you also got to watch a full Indiana football game. And Tony, what better way is there to spend 20 minutes to 4 hours of your life than consuming Indiana football?
yeah, and it's not great. And welcome to everybody. This is our Michigan Monday edition of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. And right now, Indiana's offense it's predicated by how their freshman quarterback does, who can't really throw the ball at this point, can run it a little bit. He's an athletic guy. The offense is so watered down that they had no hope other than to, like, let's just try not to screw anything up, and maybe we won't get beaten so bad, and maybe we can, I don't know, a couple of pick sixes. I think they're hoping for all kinds of different things because they weren't putting much hope in their offense because there's no reason to. And I am all Indiana out at this point because they have nothing. The defense still tries. Gosh darn it, bless those kids. But this Indiana offense is as bad as we have seen in some time. And we got to see it a little bit against Ohio State. When Jack Tuttle was in there, they're a better offense. When he goes down, they're not. And they just had no hope. They did have a touchdown drive. Congrats. I mean, good job. It was a 75-yard drive, and it was a legitimate drive. But, man, that they could have played, I don't know, 16 more quarters and maybe scored 10 more points. It was just – it's not – college football is supposed to be fun, Tom. Indiana offense is not fun.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely. Hang on. They're just running another third down quarterback draw, and it didn't work again. Okay, well, 0 for 74 then on that. Well, you know what? That just means they're due on the next one. It is just. It's like you could be entertaining bad football. Indiana is boring bad football. Like you can be boring good football. You can be entertaining good football. You can be entertaining bad football. Or you can just be boring bad football. And Indiana is the worst kind of football. It is boring. It is bad. The game is over before, if they fall behind by 10 points, the game is over. They fall behind by 10 points. Even Michigan didn't look particularly good on Saturday. They still had a 10-point lead at halftime. And it was like, well, there's no way they're coming back from this. It was, do you remember the 2007 Ohio State Michigan game where Chad Henne had a bad shoulder? Ryan Mallett was Ryan Mallett. It was, raining sideways and about 32.5 degrees in the stadium. And Ohio State was up 14-3, like 2 plays into the second half. And it was like, well, the game's over. No one needs to try anymore. Just super sim to the end. That's like every Indiana game at this point. Like this is just an enormous waste of everyone's time. So let's dive right in. Can't wait to talk about
it. Well, and I watched some of it live. It was not the most interesting game, and you see the score and you see the result at 29-7, and it's like, do I really need to watch this again? I mean, do we really need to get in depth on this game in order to talk about it? But I did. But like, you can just look at even the box score. Here's Indiana's drives, just to give people an idea of why this was such a game not worth watching again. So here's 11 for 36, 5 for 2, 3 for -6, 10 for 75, 5 for 11. 2 for 9. That was the end of the half. They ran out of that's on downs. And 3 for 4 yards, 3 plays 8 yards, 3 plays 7 yards, 3 plays 6 yards, 9 plays 29 yards. They went over a quarter without a first down in this game. And then their final drive was 3 plays for a loss of a yard. And their entire offense at one point was let Donovan McCulley, the freshman quarterback, kind of roll out to the left. And the first read is the dump off to the running back, like on the sideline, or the tight end, Peyton Hendershot. Just go get like 5 yards. And we can get an easy 24 points out of just doing this. There are more dumps in this offense than the entire state of New Jersey.
It was like they can't run the ball, can't throw the ball downfield. The intermediate passing game's not really there either. So yeah, it was a passing game. And you've talked about how frequently Michigan throws the ball within like arm's reach of the line of scrimmage. That was Indiana. It was just like there's nothing downfield, there's nothing in the intermediate, it's just nothing. And I mean, you gave the plays on all these drives, yardage. I'm just going to read the how did they lose the ball? How did they give up the ball at the end of the drive for Indiana? Ready? If you have kids in the car, you may want to just fast forward 15 seconds. It's going to get a little bleak. Punt, fumble, touchdown. Hey, punt, end of half, punt, downs, punt. I mean, that is just. I'm sorry you all had to hear that, but I think that is the neatest summary of Indiana football 2021.
Well, Tom, as long as you end every possession with a kick, either extra point or field goal or punt, generally you're going to do pretty good. Unless there's only like one actual placement and everything else is punts. But, they did have the one turnover. And no, sure, we can credit Michigan's offense, and we will or Michigan's defense, because there's plenty to credit there. But this was not an offense that was would have been a challenge for anybody. And you saw the results. So Michigan's defense did what they were supposed to do. So credit them. So we'll just run through the box score a little bit. Indiana rushed for 107 yards on 3.1 yards per carry. 3 for 88 on 10 of 25 passing. So 195 total yards. Michigan did exactly what they were supposed to do. And, that's a credit to them. I think also, Tom, a credit to David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson, because those two guys continue to be monsters. And we knew Aiden Hutchinson. Well, I think he wasn't this last year or the year before. He has become a much better player. He is living up to the hype that he had on him last year, basically placed on him by his father, I believe, at that point. And now he is playing well. 7 sacks this season, probably 3 times as many quarterback hurries, although quarterback hurries is the worst recorded stat in football because, some people have different versions of it or whatever, but you see him constantly terrorizing people. David Ojabo leads the Big Ten with 8 sacks. He had 1 in this game. Another forced fumble. He's second in the nation in forced fumbles with 4. He leads the Big Ten in that mark. On the television broadcast, I mentioned that together, Hutchinson and Ojabo lead the nation in like a pair of defensive ends from the same team, lead the nation in sacks, 15 total. And I feel like as long as those guys are around, the Michigan's defense is going to have a fighting chance of winning a game because they can cause turnovers by themselves and stop entire drives and also score points for Michigan. So those two guys are always going to have to be ones to watch. And I know we're both looking forward to the matchup with Ohio State against those tackles. But those guys, again, just really, really good.
Yeah, they seem like they are the 2 MVPs of the defense for Michigan this year because it's, we're like 9 games into the season and I still don't have a clue how good Michigan's corners are because no one's been able to throw downfield. And part of that is bad opposition for the most part throwing the ball. I mean, Michigan State did it a little bit, but I think we might find out more against Penn State this week with Jahan Dotson and what does that passing attack look like? And is Sean Clifford looking a little healthier? But I mean, Ojabo and Hutchinson, just every game they're in there and they make one play that either scores a touchdown for Michigan or sets Michigan up with a very short field. They had they had the almost scoop and score touchdown last week. They got overturned by replay. Then they had the strip sack on a really nice spin move by Ojabo to beat the right tackle inside and strip sack. And they set up a 24-yard touchdown drive for Michigan. They're worth, it feels like they're worth about 5 points a game, just the 2 of those guys. But what are they going to look like against Dwan Jones, against Nick Petit-Frere, Thayer Munford, whoever's playing tackle at that point for Ohio State? I am legitimately excited to watch that. That is going to be a really, really interesting game because I think, you go through the pass protection stats over the last year, and every time Pro Football Focus tweets out, their pass protection stats, it's like, Nick Petit-Frere and Dwan Jones and Thayer Munford, have in 500 pass protection, situations have allowed like 0 sacks and like 1 pressure this year, and it's crazy. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. My concern with Michigan, as always, like there were a lot of injuries on Saturday for Michigan. What do they have behind them? Because it's like that's always my concern with Michigan is, okay, you've got the top line talent there, if one of those guys gets hurt, what's behind him and how big is the fall off? Because it seems like when you got two guys like that who are like by far and away right now the best performers on your defense, if you lose just one of them, I think that'll have a really, really detrimental effect on their defense. But I mean, as long as they're on the field, I think they're going to have a good week against the Penn State offensive tackles next week. I mean, they are really, really, really good, and I am really excited to watch that matchup against Ohio State's line.
There was one on David Ojabo's forced fumble. Like him and Aiden Hutchinson got to the quarterback almost at the exact same time. Ojabo knocked the ball away and got the forced fumble and the sack. And Tom, it reminded me of the Malachi Crunch of Happy Days fame. And I don't know how, certainly dating ourselves here, myself, but the Malachis coming in and back in the day, we watched this in the early 80s, but Happy Days taking place in the 50s, and when the demolition derby was a big thing, and these two, the Malachis, were the bad boys of the demolition circuit, and these guys are very much like that. And I was watching that episode again today, just to remind myself of the Malachis and everything that happened. Tom, did you know that in that demolition derby, you know what I'm talking about, correct?
I vaguely remember this from Happy Day. I did not watch this today. I will surprise you to learn I was not randomly watching old Happy Days clips today. So that's on me. But probably at some point back in high school when I was homesick from school someday, I watched that on, the middle of the day on some at some point on some channel. Yes, go on.
So it's in the middle of Wisconsin, and the demolition derby ring it's surrounded by hay bales and people. Basically, that's the only thing from keeping the cars from getting into the crowd is the crowd. So first, that's probably not great safety. The second, Pinky Tuscadero, Fonzie's girlfriend, those two are kind of teaming up in different cars against the Malachis because you can't do this solo. But Pinky, no helmet. Fonzie, helmet.
Hey.
He's supposed to be the toughest guy around. He's going to wear a helmet. I don't know, to protect his hair. What? I don't know. Tom, that's probably neither here nor there. But I just did want to bring that up, the Malachis, and how those two, Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, are very much, very, very, there's a lot of Malachi to them, Tom. Let's talk about the Michigan offense, which last week, Cade McNamara has his best game ever and looks his best. And not just because he threw the ball a bunch, but he made some really nice throws, made a bad interception at the end. Opens this game by throwing the ball directly into the hands of an Indiana defender. That was one of two throws that probably should have been intercepted right into the hands of a Hoosier. And he finishes 10 of 18 for 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, sacked once. And it's like we are back in September, early October we're back to what this is. But this is Michigan's passing offense now. It's just don't do anything stupid. Don't do many things smart. Let's just keep it easy, and we'll just continue to run the ball. And I don't know that the performance last week against Michigan State even means anything anymore.
It's kind of hard for me to judge that game from Michigan because it was like, how much did they not do in the passing game because they knew they didn't have to do anything. They weren't doing a whole heck of a lot on the ground either. There were a bunch of times when they got stuffed in short yardage. So I feel like they kind of knew they didn't have to do anything crazy in the passing game. They hit a couple big ones. They hit the long one to Cornelius Johnson to set up one touchdown. But it was just, it was kind of back to being kind of uninspired. And you go back to what Ohio State did against Indiana. Like this is how I'm kind of watching these games now. What does Michigan look like against these teams that I have watched Ohio State play against? And, Ohio State versus Rutgers looked a real different than Michigan versus Rutgers did. Ohio State was up 44-7 on Indiana at halftime. And it was not really that close. It was, it was a 37-point lead, but the game wasn't really that close. Michigan was just kind of like, they're just kind of farting around and they're just, I don't know. It's like they haven't gotten out of second gear a lot this year. And, I keep going back and forth on, do they just know they don't really need to get into a higher gear, or is the car stuck in second gear and they're just kind of like, well, all right, we're going to be able to go 28 miles an hour, and that'll be enough because, you know, the team we're playing can only walk. So we'll be able to pull away from them eventually. Like, I guess. But yeah, there was enough concerning stuff there for me. I mean, there was a 3rd and 1 where Haskins got stuffed. The line basically got stood straight up on a 4th and 1 where McNamara, you know, Haskins had to like push McNamara forward to get the first down. Mm-hmm. There was another 3rd and 1 where he got where Haskins got stuffed. Like, that Indiana defensive line, we just watched that Indiana defensive line. The Indiana defensive line is nothing special, and they were really standing up the Michigan offensive line at times in short yardage. I don't know. I am starting to wonder about that Michigan defense or Michigan offense, because you look at their success rate on Saturday. Just to define success rate, we've talked about EPA, expected points added. So your success rate is just basically what percentage of plays did you add to your expected points, and what percentage of plays did you fail to add or not, drop your expected points. Michigan's success rate against Indiana's defense, which Ohio State just cut into 1,000 pieces and dumped off a bridge, was 44%. Ohio State's success rate against Nebraska, where, Nebraska's a better defense than Indiana, and also Ohio State looked, kind of real wonky for long stretches of the game. Ohio State's success rate was 46%. So Ohio State was better against Nebraska, more consistently making positive plays against Nebraska than Michigan was against Indiana. That's a problem. I really am starting to wonder about Michigan, because it feels like I keep waiting for them to show me something. Like, I keep waiting for them to just kind of put the pedal down and go and really put some distance between themselves and everyone else. They did that in September very consistently. Ever since then, it's just been like, they're not doing anything consistently. The touchdown drives was the 24-yarder after the strip sack. They had a really long run by Hassan Haskins in one where they're hitting a big play, and then they just have to make a play or two in the red zone. They had the long pass to Cornelius Johnson that set up the other touchdown. Those were the 3 touchdown drives. They bogged down in the red zone again. They're struggling in short yardage running. Like, they're having a lot of the same issues that Ohio State is on offense, but they're doing it against worse defenses. And that, I think, has to be a little bit of a concern. If you're, Ohio State's offense right now, Ohio State fans are looking at it like this is a big problem. Michigan's offense is like the poor man's Ohio State offense right now. I think that's a concern, because I still don't know what the Michigan defense is going to do against this Ohio State offense, because we still haven't seen anyone test that Michigan secondary downfield.
That is bizarre that we haven't. And again, you look at the schedule and who would do it. So Hassan Haskins, well, here's what Michigan did. 188 yards on the ground, 223 through the air. Those 188 yards on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry. Hassan Haskins went for 27 carries, 168 yards, long of 62. So, remove that, and it's 26 for 106. And I think he had some other, like an 18-yarder or something like that. But overall, it was, probably under 4 yards a carry. You take away the one big one, which, yes, take it away, don't take it away, whatever you think of that. 27 carries, you would want more than what they got, I think. And he's 6.2 yards per carry, but just the one big one was what stood out. And as Tom said, they struggled a little bit. Blake Corum, 1 carry for 4 yards, left the game with a foot injury of some kind. Jim Harbaugh doesn't think it's too serious, but he was in a boot during the game. And so that's not good. But I also like when they kind of commit to Hassan Haskins, because I do think he's good, and he's the kind of guy that can just you continue to give him the ball, and you know what, you might get a 62-yarder out of it. And that's what happened. And sometimes it maybe takes a little bit, but you're going to get every yard that is available, I think, from him. And he's just going to continue to run and pound. And he's got the kind of mentality you want from a running back. You mentioned Cornelius Johnson with the 50-yard catch. He had to slow down for that one. Had it been in time, he could have just kept running. And I think that's still a problem with this Michigan passing offense, where there's the consistency downfield. We know like it's not consistent. And even when it is like in his hands, he still has to slow up and allow a defender to catch him, because he Cornelius Johnson got past the defense and should have scored. Eric All didn't play the tight end. He left the game. The last game had some sort of an injury, but I guess was okay to play in this one, but didn't. Luke Schoonmaker did kind of pretty good with what he had a tremendous catch in the end zone, but it was out of the end zone, a diving one-handed catch to give you an idea of what he can do. But he was fine, had 2 touchdown catches. The real story, maybe, Tom, or the interesting story, is the situation with JJ McCarthy right now.
Yep.
And he's the red zone quarterback. He came in for an entire drive. Cade McNamara is dealing with some sort of an injury right now, so JJ McCarthy is going to get some more time anyway. But you still see JJ McCarthy thinks he can do anything on the field, and we saw the one where he rolls out right, throws way back across to his left because he thinks this is a video game or something. I don't know. And it's just he got away with it like the first time he tried it this season and went for a touchdown to Dalen Baldwin. And then since then, maybe he thinks that this is just how it is, but Tom, it ain't.
Yeah, I have in my notes. I'm just going to lay down a marker right now. JJ McCarthy throws an absolutely back-breaking interception, possibly pick 6 against Penn State or Ohio State. Like that play earlier in the year, I was trying to remember which game that was. Was that Central Michigan? It was one of those early ones, or Western Michigan, whichever one they played. It was one of those real early in the year where they're up by 1 trillion points, and it's a MAC team, and the MAC team probably has their second stringers in there. And so you can do that against the second stringers from a MAC team, throw it back across the field, across your body late in the play, and get away with it.
Western Michigan.
Okay. Yeah. Guess who you're not playing next week? You're not playing Western Michigan. Guess who you're not playing in 3 weeks? You're not playing Western Michigan. You're playing Penn State. You're playing Ohio State. One of those is getting picked off. You cannot do this. I mean, we have talked all the time about, a true freshman will lose you a game. A true freshman quarterback will lose you 1 game a year. You can feel it coming with JJ McCarthy. He's a very talented player. You see what he can do with his legs, but oh my Lord, you can see it coming. There was that one, the third, it was like a 3rd and 18 that he like rolled right, floated it over the middle, like late over the middle, floating it over the middle. It's like, this is not one of those 2 negatives cancel each other out and it's positive. Like, it's like, that just makes it no, don't do that. There's another one where he threw one out wide that if the Indiana defensive back had gotten a better break on the ball, it probably would have been a pick 6. I mean, there were just a couple like, oh boy, like Michigan fans just watching like between their fingers, like, oh, what's he going to do next? You're about to face a bunch of cornerbacks you can't get away with that against. And I'm going to be real interested to see how they use him moving forward, because it feels like they're sort of setting him up for, he's the running quarterback. Surprise, he can throw the ball too. But man, I don't know if they're going to trust him in red zone situations in these, in these big games. Like it's okay to do it in the 3rd quarter against Indiana when they're not going to be able to score. But man, you can just, it is just like, the Baker Mayfield woke up feeling dangerous quote. Like that's JJ McCarthy, but not necessarily in a good way.
So he was 5 of 10 passing, McCarthy, with 1 interception, 55 yards, a long of 23, but he was sacked twice. And a couple of those sacks, there's awareness going on, there's pocket presence, that sort of thing, where I think he got caught up on one was a blitz up the middle and just got taken down. And it feels to me like Jim Harbaugh would just please take the job, JJ. We're trying to give you opportunity. And they're giving him more opportunities than, like, this is not normal. What is going on? You're trying to will him to win this job. And like, he has all of the ability. Like, he can escape. He's mobile. He has a huge arm. But when is he going to throw the one pass that he should? But the thing is, you can ask the same thing of Cade McNamara. Like I said, he threw 2 passes that should have been interceptions, like right into the Indiana Hoosier arms. And so is one more dangerous than the other when they're throwing? I don't know. Is one more profitable down the field? Certainly. But how much of a living are you even going to try to make down the field with either of these quarterbacks? Because I don't I mean, Dalen Baldwin has like a 69-yarder,
Nice.
69-yard touchdown against Western Michigan, like a 56-yarder against Wisconsin. Then other than that, you've heard nothing. Andrell Anthony, saw him blow up last week, had one catch for 16 yards in this one. Mike Sainristil 2 for 27, with 26 of those yards being yak. So, those are just two short passes that he's then doing something with. And so I don't even know how much of a downfield quarterback they need at this point, because that's not really what they do. But it just keeps taking me back to, like, you should do it though. Like, help your running game out, push the defense back. And I don't think a defense really fears Cade McNamara. JJ McCarthy gives you more to worry about, but also gives Jim Harbaugh more to worry about. And that's, to me, that's what's keeping him from just taking the job over. Because you could just see there's enough reason there in this Indiana game for you see why JJ McCarthy's not the starter right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago, which is you want him to be your starter because he gives you a higher ceiling. But in order to do that, you have to commit to him a little bit earlier, which means you have to play him more in those early games. He wasn't, maybe he wasn't ready, but you've got to play him a little bit more, and you've got to commit. When you're up 63 to whatever against Western Michigan, like, he should be playing the whole second half. He should be playing the whole second half against Northern Illinois. Like, he didn't get enough reps. And when he was in, he was doing a lot of running. He wasn't throwing the ball. I mean, Kyle McCord had and possibly still has more passing attempts than McCarthy has all season. Jack Miller had almost as many passing attempts as McCarthy as of a week or two ago. Like, Jim Harbaugh needed to commit to this a lot earlier. Like, I think this was pretty obvious that, Cade McNamara is what he is. He's fine. Like, if you want to go 9-3, like, Cade McNamara is your dude. Like, he is your dude. And maybe going 9-3 is all Harbaugh needs to do this year. And if so, fine. But I still don't think Michigan can drive the ball consistently against Ohio State. And I don't know that they can drive the ball consistently against Penn State. They couldn't drive the ball consistently against Indiana, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. 3 drives. One of them was 3 touchdown drives. One of them was the long touchdown the long pass to Cornelius Johnson that got him most of the way down there. One of them was the long run by Haskins that got him most of the way down there. And one of them was the strip sack. Like, you need to have big plays. Cade McNamara is not really a big play quarterback, certainly not a consistent big play quarterback. So you need a consistent big play quarterback. You need the guy with the arm who's going to be able to throw it downfield and not, have everyone like fair catching it 50 yards downfield, and, not letting safeties get over there because the ball's in the air too long. JJ McCarthy is the guy who could be that player for them, but they didn't commit to it early enough in the year. So now he's not ready. And now, you're going to get into these Penn State games. And it's like, boy, he's making some early freshman year mistakes. It's like, yes, because he's still like an early freshman year in terms of reps. Like, he has not had the number of reps you would need. He's not made the number of opportunities to play, the number of opportunities to really throw the ball, more importantly, throughout the course of the year. So he's not ready. So now you're in the end of the season, and you don't have the quarterback who you really need to have a higher ceiling in some of these games where you're going to have to hit some big plays. The quarterback who can actually maybe help you do that isn't ready to do it. And, that's something that, I think this was a couple weeks ago, we talked about kind of the moral hazard of Jim Harbaugh being in kind of basically a 1-year contract right now. Is Jim Harbaugh is extremely incentivized to have a good year this year so that he gets to have a year next year. But, a good year is fine, but a good year, you probably lose to Penn State and Ohio State and you finish 9-3. It's like, well, it was still a good year. But if you committed to McCarthy earlier, maybe you have a chance to beat one of those teams, or a better chance to beat one of those teams and have an even better year.
Let me are you ready for these Kyle McCord versus JJ McCarthy stats on the season?
Mm-hmm.
JJ McCarthy, 20 of 33 for 290 yards with 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kyle McCord, 21 of 30, 399 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Just an FYI. Tom, I think here's what I can see happening in my head. Michigan trails at the half at Penn State, 17-0. Jim Harbaugh hands it over to JJ McCarthy. It's his team from that point on. They go to Maryland the week after, give him an opportunity to play the entire game, do all of that, and get him as ready for Ohio State as you can. So this would give him just basically 1.5 games of starting to get ready for Ohio State at home. I think he gives you a better chance. Certainly, again, stretches the field more than a Cade McNamara. So I think as long as Michigan's offense cooperates by getting shut out in the first half against Penn State, I think you have enough reason, enough incentive, enough, like, if it appears like the game is kind of out of reach and maybe at like 17-0, it is. And maybe even if your offense is doing nothing in the first half, basically, whatever the score is, maybe at that time you're like, look, it's time. This is what we've been preparing for. Cade, we've given you all season long to do this. We need more. And so we're going to do this now. You're going to be here ready. If we need you to stay alert, need you to stay engaged, locked in, Cade, because we can go right back to you. We may need you to win this game. But right now we got to try to find some offense. And at that point, you give JJ McCarthy the keys. The program is his, and you've got some time to get ready for Ohio State. And even if you lose Penn State, but you beat Maryland, and then you beat Ohio State, that Penn State game is meaningless for Michigan, its fans, and everybody.
Well, this is a season where they could lose the next two games, and if they beat Ohio State, it doesn't matter. They could have lost last weekend and the next two games, and if they beat Ohio State, it doesn't matter. I think ideally you would have committed to this already, because it feels like we've kind of seen enough Michigan to know, like, with Cade McNamara, they are what they are. Like, it's fine, and they'll win some of these games, but they're just fine. They're just like a B- offense with Cade McNamara. With JJ McCarthy, they might be a C offense sometimes, and they might be in B+ offense sometimes. But they're not necessarily going to be a B-. Your scenario seems perfectly reasonable. I'm going to need you to show your work on how Penn State gets to 17 points in the first half against Michigan's defense, because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think they might hit a play. You're going to hit a big play in the passing game at some point. And I am kind of intrigued at what the passing game looks like. But, Jahan Dotson, Parker Washington, someone makes a big play in the passing game for sure for Penn State. And this is going to be what I'm really interested to see with Michigan next week is I think they're going to be able to get a good pass rush against that Penn State offensive line, but can John Clifford get the ball out quickly enough and get it into those guys' hands? And let's see those Michigan corners have to make plays in space against good skill talent, because I still don't feel like we've seen that this year. So I'm interested in that, but I'm totally on board with the scenario you laid out. Like, turn the keys over, and the fact that they've been shuffling these guys in and out, it doesn't even necessarily have to be that big of a pronouncement. It doesn't have to be like, and now I crown thee, like, JJ McCarthy doesn't have to pull a sword out of the stone or anything at halftime in the locker room. Like, you can just, okay, we're going to start the third quarter with JJ. We're going to give him a couple drives and see what happens. I think that's what they need to do, but I think they would have set themselves up for better success had they done this a couple weeks ago. Because I think, after the Rutgers game or so, it was pretty apparent, like, this just kind of is what this offense is at this point. And that's not going to be good enough against better opposition, but they had to win the games to just kind of get that win total up to, like, okay, now we're out of the firing range. So now it's okay. Now we can make the change. And it's like, I think they may have missed their window to have that be, potentially a really effective change if they do make it.
Well, and that's why I'm saying the offense has to cooperate, because after that Rutgers game, Michigan then goes to Wisconsin and wins 38-17. So it's like, well, why would we bench a quarterback at that point? And then they come back with the 3-point win at Nebraska. You're like, but then it's a 33-7 win over Northwestern. It's like, things are fine. And then they lose to Michigan State. And it's like, maybe now is the time, but then they go ahead and beat Indiana 29-7. It's, if there's no offense in that first half for Michigan, go ahead and make the change. If I am Michigan, also, I am trying to match up Daxton Hill with Jahan Dotson as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you to put Dotson in the slot, and I don't know that they will. And so you might want to move Daxton Hill around to, he's your best player in the secondary. Don't let Jahan Dotson hurt you, because there's not much else on that Penn State offense that can. And maybe Sean Clifford will be healthy enough to where he can run the ball, and maybe that creates just picking up some third downs, and you've got some long drives, and then boom, you hit a big one. And 17 points in the first half, yes, Tom, that's a lot. But then I also said, regardless of the score, if you're not doing anything on offense, it might be time. But again, then it's like, well, we're not losing, so things are fine. And it's no, they're not, because the one time you came up against a team of similar talent or had an offense that could do something, you lose, and you're back to square one. Except now you're back to square one, and if you just keep doing the same thing that you were doing when you were last at square one, eventually the same thing is going to happen where you lose a game. But we've talked about the Michigan State loss. We have now talked about the Indiana win. Tom, anything else that you want to mention before we go?
No, just really interested to see the Michigan defensive backs this week. I think this is, we have been talking about the Michigan defensive backfield as like kind of one of the big question marks on this team. And here we are in mid-November, and I feel like we still don't actually have an answer on that because they haven't faced a team that can challenge them. This week, potentially, they finally do have a team that can challenge them. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
And that is a noon kickoff, but it's an ABC kickoff. So it is not a big noon Saturday, but it's a big Saturday, and the game will take place at noon. So there you go for that one on ABC, as I said. So that will do it for this episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in. As always, you can find our videos at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Go ahead and hit the bell. Be notified when we drop a new video, we go live, or anything else that gets dropped from the Buckeye Scoop account. And you can also find this podcast on any podcast platform of your choosing. Just search Buckeye Weekly Podcast, and boom, we're there. And there's a bunch there. And you can also find Tom's podcast, The Morning Scoop, as well. And that's a daily thing. And just go ahead and listen and enjoy your morning. Even if you're a Michigan fan listening or watching this right now, get a daily update on what's going on with the Buckeyes. What more could you possibly want in life? So that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.